Ahoy! New World Season 7 comes with a ton of new artifacts, and in this video we're going to look at the perks. I'm going to talk about what I would recommend in terms of upgrades for the last perk, and also where to get them. We're going to jump in right away, starting with Aconite. This new bow comes with Poison Affinity, which allows you to deal 15% more damage to poisoned enemies with both of your weapons. Comes with Poisoned Arrows, which allows your charge attacks to cause poison damage for 5% weapon damage for 10 seconds, so total of 50%. And the extra perks are Refreshing Move and Enchanted. Aconite drops from Rirodulon, the Rootbound, which is a bit of a throwback for some of the early day players, because that is a tentacle and reek-water at the very top of Eternal Pools, right next to the entrance that people used to farm back in the day. In terms of perks, one consideration that you could definitely opt for if you just want to deal extra damage is Boreal Attunement. Since you're generally focusing on poison damage, you could get a poison damage ring along with that, and that would further get enhanced here. You can of course also get other attunements if you want to split your damage more, or you can get a weapon perk. Now, I personally am a big fan of Enfeebling Poison Shot, especially in PvE, if that is required for any of the content you're doing, or otherwise I also like in PvP, but it's more subjective. And since with this build you're likely running Poison Shot to have an extra avenue to apply poisons, you don't always need to use heavies if you for any reason ever just want to use a quick light attack, then you can have this additional proc. Of course, you can also purely rely on quick heavy attacks instead and go for a completely different weapon perk depending on what you are personally after. Keep in mind that unlike the other weapons from this patch, this does not come with a gem slot, and you can also not add a gem slot. Shrapnel, the new musket, has the perk Shrapnel Shot, which makes headshots on enemies cause 10% bleed for 6 seconds. In addition to that, you also get Keenly Jacked, so you're essentially applying 2 bleeds at the same time, and you also have Vicious here. Shrapnel drops from the Outpost Rush cache, so it should be pretty easy to get because those, I think, have the luck save mechanic applied to them. Of course, you can once again go for a weapon perk here, but personally in this case I would probably prefer Attunement for some extra damage, or you can also consider Penetrating Headshots, since you're already relying on headshots for the primary passive of your musket, so you can kind of play further into that. Depends a little bit on what targets you're choosing. Generally, as an all-rounder weapon, I would choose Attunement just because it also applies in PvE. Burnanator may actually be the strongest artifact of this patch, or at least go toe-to-toe with Heceta. This comes with Burnanation, which makes all Fire Staff skills and heavy attacks deal 33% less damage, but causes 15% burning for 5 seconds in return with a maximum of 5 stacks, and this damage over time tends to overclass the base damage reduction that you're getting. Along with that, you're getting a Keenly Jacked and Refreshing Move, absolutely not bad perks. Burnanator drops from the Leviathan of the Deep at the top of the mines area in Shattered Mountain. Now, while there are technically a lot of perks that are strong on Fire Staff, you could technically go for something like Vicious or even Keen or Attunement or Alacritus Punishment. In this particular case, the one perk that stands out to me is absolutely Disdained Infliction. Since this entire weapon revolves so heavily around damage over time, increasing the potency of those is just a massive damage boost overall. Heceta is the new Life Staff artifact, which comes with Light Touch. For 5 seconds after casting a Life Staff ability, the next heavy attack that passes through an ally will grant Reinforced, giving them 30% damage absorption for the next hit taken within 7 seconds. Not quite as crazy as it initially sounded, but still a pretty nice reduction, even though it's just for 1 hit. Along with that, this comes with Refreshing Move and Blessed, so there isn't really much of a trade-off to using this. It's also easy to get since you're getting it from the Season Pass at level 80. When it comes to the perk choices, you are likely going to choose a weapon perk. Which one is up to your playstyle. For example, you could go for Mending Protection, you could go for Purity of Light, you could go for Refreshing Divine Embrace even, or Fortifying Sacred if that's your playstyle, you're more PvE focused. There's a lot of options. I'm not going to go too deep into that because I'm not a Life Staff expert by any means. But I will say that there are definitely always lively debates about which of these perks is the most useful for the Life Staff, and more than anything I would choose based on which skill you prefer using. Dogort's Blade, the new rapier, comes with the Lava Tip perk, which makes heavy melee attacks on both of your weapons cause 10% burning for 6 seconds with a maximum of 3 stacks. Along with that, it comes with Transient Strikes and Refreshing Move. This drops from Ifrit, the first boss in the Empyrean Forge. I generally find Dogort's Blade to be a weird weapon, which makes it hard to choose the correct perk for it. Generally speaking, maybe if you're going for a very flame-focused build and you have some fire damage on the other weapon, you might want to go for Flame Attunement and just heavily play into that. But if we're more focused on specific playstyles, then maybe in a PvP playstyle, you might want to go for Penetrating Backstabs, or you might want to go for a skill perk depending on what perks you're using. There's many options here, it just depends on your playstyle. In PvE, I would assume that you're likely going to run this not in a bleed build, because you probably run Finisher there. So you're likely going to run some form of evade build, and in that case, omnidirectional evade would make a lot of sense to me, but that's obviously only if you're actually using that. Overall, again, weird weapon, so it depends more on what you want to combine it with. Otzi is the new Ice Gauntlet artifact. It comes with Frozen Tomb. Hitting a target with Entomb's Break will inflict them with Frostburn, slowing their movement speed by 10% and dealing 10% of your weapon damage every second for 5 seconds. Along with that, you have Refreshing Move and Vicious. This drops from the Season Pass at track level 20, so very easy to get. Again, a very weird weapon that's super niche, which makes it difficult to recommend perks. Maybe you just want to go for Frost Attunement for a general damage increase, or you could go perk specific here. Once again, one option for PvE, for example, would be Pylon Burst. That's just generally a nice one to have. Similarly, there is Unending Thaw, which some people like. And then in PvP, you could also consider Empowered Ice Spike. So quite a few options. Once again, you could maybe also make something happen somehow with Healing Tomb, because obviously this build revolves around the tomb, but I would probably still put that on armor because the healing value is not much higher. Fracture, the new Void Gauntlet, comes with Mending Rupture, which makes Overflowing Essence heal for 100% more health, and Essence Rupture itself does 50% more damage on hit. Along with that, it has Refreshing Move and Keen, which are decent perks for Void Gauntlet. This drops from level 65 Major Corruption Breaches, so it should have the normal luck save for farming too. Perk-wise, the obvious choice here is Refreshing Rupture. Your Rupture does more damage, and this reduces the cooldown significantly more, so that makes it more effective. The downside is that, as far as I'm aware, if you're using it that way, you're not getting the consistent healing, because the override doesn't trigger the healing, is what I've been told. If that's the case, or if you generally want to work with a different kind of ranged playstyle, then in PvP at least, it's also worth considering to run Diminishing Orb on this weapon, which drastically reduces the buffs on the target. So in that case, you're running into less issues with the cooldown, and you just have more debuffing in other ways instead, which you can still combine with Rupture, of course. But this is a matter of preference. Generally, I would probably go for Refreshing Rupture here. Justice is the new earring, which comes with Alchemist's Ward. When you get hit 20 times, gain a potion surge that will recharge your next healing potion instantly with a 90 seconds cooldown. And you can't use multiple potion surges within 75 seconds of each other if you're trying to combine it with the other artifact, the Survivor's Code. This also comes with Empowering Toast and with Healing Heart. Due to the potion changes, this potion surge is actually a lot more appealing than it was before, and there's something worth considering more. Justice drops from the Influence Race caches. It appears you actually need to win the Influence Race in order to get it, since it only drops from the Victor Spoils. Amulets generally have very flexible perk pools. So you could, for example, go for Refreshing Toast, or if this is more PvE focused, you could go for Refreshing. You could also consider Regenerating in general, because that's another nice way to get health now, and people kind of neglected it for a while, but now it's more interesting. Or you could just go for Nimble, particularly in PvP, if you like that perk. Again, between those 4 perks, there isn't really a wrong answer here. If you found this helpful and you want to see more videos like this, then consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you get notified. And if you'd like to support me further, you can do so on Patreon and get early trading tips in return. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that, and thank you for watching. SLOTH, out.